Good evening, everyone. At this time, I would like to call to order the August 16th regular meeting of Gahanna City Council and ask for the invocation and pledge by Mrs. McGregor.
Father God, we thank you for the wonderful rainy day that we had today. We ask for your wisdom as we decide issues for the city of Gahanna. We ask for your protection for the men and women of our police and armed forces. We particularly ask for safety for our troops in Afghanistan as they attempt to evacuate our citizens and interpreters. Amen.
Amen.
And for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Angelou? Here. Bowers? Here. Lyric?
Here.
Leesburg?
Here.
McGregor? Here. Renner?
Here.
Schnetzer?
Here. At this time, are there any additions or corrections to the agenda this evening? None appearing. Hearing of visitors. We will start with the proclamation. Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Tonight, well, let me back up with last year, the Kiwanis Club of Gahanna celebrated their 60th anniversary. It was the 60th anniversary of their charter establishment here in the city of Gahanna, and as we all know, COVID got in the way of a celebration. Everybody was sheltered in place. They weren't able to celebrate that. So the organization is celebrating their 60th anniversary in their 61st year and have established that they're going to do that on August 30th of 2021. And this is our last council meeting before that date to issue the proclamation to them. So I know we have several members of the Gahanna Kiwanis here with us today, and I don't know who's going to come up to receive the proclamation. Nancy, you can all come up, absolutely. And we actually have one of the founding charter members of the organization. Would you like to introduce all of your members who are here with you tonight?
Yes, I'd love to.
Yep.
Okay, so our charter member, our club is 60 years old, and our charter member has been in the club for 60 years, Dick Ronkowski. Then 40 years, right, Frank Walker. Then we have Rita Corbin, Gail Keaton, Jenny Brown, and Daphne Mooring here tonight.
I'd like to line up maybe over this way. So I'm not going to read the proclamation because it's rather long. They have a lot of accomplishments, but I think we all know the Gahanna Kiwanis and what exactly they do for Gahanna. We've all encountered them in pretty much any time you go to an event in Gahanna, they are going to be there working. They are an incredible group of dedicated people, but just to give you a sense of some of the things that for the past 60 years, the Kiwanis Club of Gahanna has supported multiple programs, projects, and organizations in the city of Gahanna, including Safety Town, buying car seats for the Gahanna Division of Police to use, charitable works at St. Matthew the Apostle Church, the Gahanna Historical Society, Visit Gahanna, Gahanna Residents in Need, and Ohio Power of the Pen. They provide mentorship for Gahanna teens through sponsorship of the Kiwanis Key Club of Gahanna Lincoln High School, which is part of Key Club International, the oldest and largest service organization for teens in the country. And each year, as I just referenced, the members of the Kiwanis Club dedicate hundreds of hours of volunteer support for events such as Creekside Live, Creekside Blues and Jazz Festival, Creekside Hops and Vines, Taste of Gahanna, the Great Gahanna Goblin Trail, formerly known as Creepside Festival, and of course, Holiday Lights. And this one, to me, was perhaps particularly impressive, besides the fact that they know how to pour a good beverage at an event. The Kiwanis Club of Gahanna has generously provided financial donations for many projects in our city, and I don't know that many people know all that they've done. Each year, they award 3 $2,000 scholarships to Gahanna Lincoln High School seniors. They supported the Junior Girl Scout Troop number 678 and the Woodside Green Natural Play Project. They obtained a matching grant from the Ohio Kiwanis District for $10,000, which went toward the construction and building of Sunpoint Park. They contributed $5,000 toward the purchase of the mobile food pantry truck for Grin, which has in turn made tremendous impact in our community this past year. and they purchased child CPR mannequins for Mifflin Township Division of Fire to use in training of their personnel. And I'm sure that that is just a small list of all of the work and impact that you have made in our community. So, for more than 60 years, the Kiwanis Club of Gahanna has provided leadership development, positive role models, intercultural understanding and cooperation, and opportunities for fellowship, personal growth, professional development, and service in the Gahanna community. So now I, Laurie A. Jadwin, Mayor of the City of Gahanna, do urge our citizens to recognize the Kiwanis Club of Gahanna for their meaningful service in our homes, our schools, and our community. And I do hereby proclaim August 30th, 2021 as Kiwanis Club of Gahanna Day. Congratulations and thank you for all that you do for Gahanna.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks at the Blues and Jazz Fest. You want to lay across? We'll hold you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. And moving on to public comment, I have several speaker slips. The first is from Ms. Patricia Kovacs. If you would step up to the microphone and give your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Kovacs, and I live at 527 Haversham Drive, which is near Foxborough Pool. And today I wanted to comment on the city code ordinances that were just introduced last week. I didn't get a chance to review them till over the weekend, so last minute as usual. But I wanted to ask if we could make a few changes, and I sent a document to Crystal that hopefully you guys will all receive at some point. But the main thing I wanted to ask was if we could update our sidewalk law. I'm on a committee that maintains something called the Uniform Vehicle Code, which has some extra things in the sidewalk law that I think are important for Gahanna to adopt. And those are, first of all, well, one of the things that's in our state law is that we are adding electric bicycles to the bicycle laws. And one is that, law enforcement officers should be allowed to ride electric bicycles on sidewalks. The other two are that a cyclist is allowed to ride their bike through a crosswalk. But they have to follow all the laws that a pedestrian has to follow. So I'm not saying we're just going to blast through crosswalks. They have to yield to vehicles that are close enough to cause an immediate hazard. And thirdly, if a bicyclist rides on the sidewalk, they should yield to pedestrians and let pedestrians know audibly that they're going to be passing. So those three things I think are important to keep our cyclists safe when they're riding on the sidewalks. And I think everybody knows we're only allowed to ride on residential streets in Gahanna, not in the commercial districts. And the reason this came up is I've actually been trying to get the state to adopt the law, and it was actually added was attempted to be added as an amendment to the transportation budget bill, but it got pulled at the last minute. So I'm still going to try to get that in the state law. But cities are allowed to set their own rules for sidewalks, and several states have these in their sidewalk law. So I'm hoping we can do that. And just to share a quick story, 2 weeks ago, I taught a bicycle class to 3 12 and 13-year-old girls, and we rode down the Big Walnut Trail and came back on the on-street route through Old Gahanna. When we were crossing the crosswalk from Colony Place to the bike trail across Johnstown Road, we pressed the button, we waited, and then when it changed to walk, we started to go. But someone turned left in front of us and didn't yield. So I just told the girls, you know, when the light changes to green, wait a second to make sure, because there's all these speeders and red light runners now with COVID. So I said, that's what you have to watch for. But so I posted on Take Back Gahanna, hey everybody, watch out make sure you yield to pedestrians in crosswalks. And then I mentioned that I was with some people and we were riding our bikes. I got yelled at by a bunch of people, you're not allowed to ride through a crosswalk. So You actually are, but it's not written in words in our law, so that's why I wanted to make this change. Then the other things that I included in this document are that we have some city ordinances that aren't in state law that should be changed to add electric bicycles to. There are a few changes in the motorized bicycle ordinances that don't match the state law that we should correct. We do have a law about, the names of these things are crazy, but segways, we have a law in the state and in the city that they're allowed to be operated on sidewalks, paths, and bike lanes. But the state already added an e-scooter law that I think we should add to our city law. So let's see what else. Make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Oh, and then we have a law about reckless operation. I think we should add that we can have that distracted driving law added. Like if a bicyclist is using their phone while they're riding, they should be able to be cited as a secondary offense. They shouldn't be using their phone on their bicycle. And then Gahanna also has these age limits on riding. 6 years on 25-mile-an-hour roads, 8 years on 35-mile roads. And I would like that to be updated to say that you can ride on those roads if you're accompanied by an adult. Because I know a lot of little kids that ride on those roads. As long as they're with their parents, I think it's safe if it's like a residential street. And finally, with the electric bicycles, maybe we should add an age limit on electric bicycles. I think that's it, but everything's kind of clear in this, well, hopefully not clear, but everything's in this document. This is just from me alone. The bicycle committee hasn't had time to review it all, and I sent it to them, and they did ask me a few questions. So I guess what I'm asking is if we could delay until we get a chance to like make sure this is really how we want the bicycle laws to be in Ohio, in Gahanna. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
And Ms. Hoffman? And Ms. Hoffman, if you would give your name and address for the record. I have 2 slips here, but if we'll be cognizant of time and we'll go from there unless, Carol, you would like to speak as well.
Thank you, Mr. Lyric. My name is Brenda R. Hoffman. I live at 279 High Meadow Drive, Gahanna, Ohio, 43230. And what she said, I loved all of that. I just wanted to take an opportunity to say thank you to some of our folks in public service. I had reached out a couple of weeks ago to Jamie Leesburg, kind of in jest, showing him the forms that Strausser used on my corner, our corner of our house. We live on a corner, and as most of you probably know, you have sidewalk, landing in the center, ramp down. On each side of the ramp comes up in a curvature, that's called a flare, and at the bottom is a plate. Those are truncated dots. They come in all colors. We use typically, I think, an armor plate, if I'm looking at it right. Our truncated dots are red for people that are blind or visually impaired. After seeing the forms go in, asking a Strausser employee, how deep is that supposed to be under that truncated dot? He told me 6.5 inches. That's contrary to the 2319 drawing that we ratified. We didn't codify it, but what we're using for the ramp in Gahanna. Also, after the forms came off, because we noticed the forms were flat down on the earth. Now, my earth is not like everybody else's where it's packed because the sidewalk's been there for 30 years. My sidewalk had to be taken out because of a problem with Gahanna with a code violation that wasn't legal. And we report. So what you did is basically hire a contractor who tore out legal, sloped correctly, in excess of 4-inch sidewalk, and put in panels of sidewalk that not one single panel is 4 inches or greater, and even your landing is not 4 inches or greater, and even your ramp that I saw poured is not 8 inches at the street curb, and it is not 4 inches up on the side. And so we waited until they took the forms off. We went out and measured. We started kind of doing what we do about, hey, Gahanna, look at this mess. This last week, they did come back after I posted about my sledgehammer skills on Facebook, contacted the city. So public service has gone above and beyond. I cannot say enough thank you. I cannot say enough good job, excellent response. I cannot applaud Gahanna any greater than we have. Now, we still haven't heard back from Gahanna about when Strasser intends to come out and re-pour, but apparently because of that whole 10%, 25%, half, a kick in the budget for finishing early, they felt the need to put the dirt around the bad sidewalk. So they came out and put the dirt. I stopped them from putting the seed because I want my own seed. I'm a master gardener that took turf classes. So my issue is that when I brought this to the city, and again, no, I'm not banging on anybody, but one individual told me, why are you worried about that? That ramp and that landing are the city's responsibility. And I said, look, whatever. You put it in writing that you're going to replace the landing and all the sidewalk, I'll let the ramp go. You have to put a little water in your wine. And I still believe that, because if the city's going to replace the ramp when the snowplow guys come up on it, fine, go ahead. At least we have the truncated marking. We do have a blind individual in our neighborhood. We had 2, but 1 has passed away, so that's all fine. But I started thinking about it. You guys, everybody worked really hard to get ADA code and to get these measurements and to get these drawings down, and this is how we want it. And then somebody says something like that to me. So, for now, it's okay. It's okay for now. I said what I meant, and I meant what I said. Okay, just leave the shoddy ramp there. Just re-change out my sidewalks. Get me a landing that's at least 4 inches thick. I'll be happy. I'll go away and shut my mouth. And then we're going to go move down to the end of the sidewalk that's been 4 years and 2 months now. It's still not right. So we've always got a problem. But in the interim period, our people did what they were supposed to do. And they did it very, very well. Corey Strausser, not so. You are his customer, and he looked at your inspector and said no, turned his back and walked off in the middle of a conversation. So if we're paying Strausser for that kind of behavior, maybe we need to think about that in the future. So, like I said, our people, very, very proud of our people. They all did an excellent job. They have all been responsive. We're still waiting to hear about when Strasser's going to come out, tear it out, and re-pour. And I'm going to volunteer to sledge it out if they don't get out there soon. Just so if anybody needs any sledgehammer work, I've proven to myself that with the heart condition, I can do it. So I'm willing to do it. But everything else is good. So I just kind of feel like you guys don't get informed about all the things that are going on. And you do get to hear a lot of griping from me because I'm one of those normative versus positive people that always thinks that everything has to be a straight A. You'll never hear me dog on a blue-collar worker. My dad was a blue-collar worker after having been a chemist, so I don't dog on people that do manual labor, plumbers, whatever. So I'm not going to dog on that. But I think it's time that you do get to hear some good things about what happens. And I do believe that our city did some good things. They paid attention. Now, the guy that told me that you're only pouring 6.5 inches, me and him are going to have a little talk next time I see him, because I knew better when he told me when he was lying to me. So anyway, that's it. Thank you all very much. Good to see you. I don't know how long we're going to keep doing this because the COVID numbers are going up, but I'm very pleased to see you all here. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to confirm, Carol, you do not wish to speak this time? Thank you. And moving to item D, the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Leesburg, seconded by Mr. Schnetzer. Roll call?
Leesburg,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Lyric,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Angelou.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item E, ordinances for introduction and first reading. We have ordinance 0050-2021.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce the items under E, ordinance 0050-2021.
Thank you. And correspondence and actions. Madam Clerk
We have none.
and council. Representatives, the Community Improvement Corporation. Mr.
Yeah,
Leesburg.
thank you. We have a live in-person meeting tomorrow at the Gahanna Golf Course. I believe 8 o'clock in the morning. So our first live person real in-live person meeting, all those things in a while. So anyway.
Thank you. Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, Mrs. Angelou.
Thank you. We actually had a meeting this past Thursday. I'm going to just go over some of the things very quickly, I hope. First of all, we were back at home, and it was so wonderful to be the person to announce, welcome home, Morph C family. And what a home it is. Obviously, we've done a whole bunch of things to make it a beautiful place to work, a beautiful place to hold meetings, and indeed, that was why our song of the month was "Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow," because we could go in there today and we knew that everybody at Morph C never stopped working during this COVID thing. They just don't care what happened yesterday, and they're looking forward to tomorrow. We had, it was a hybrid type event, and there were about 70 people that came virtually, and there were probably, I want to say 40 or 50 even, that were there in person, and we certainly want to have everybody coming there in person because it's such a beautiful place now to be, and it's so much easier to work what's going on. So I was able to welcome all of the people to our family there at Morph, excuse me. We had some recognition of guests, and we had some people that were there. The Ohio Chamber of Commerce, new Ohio Chamber of Commerce, Steve Stivers came and presented actually kind of a thank you for all that Morph C was doing for not only our region, but for him when he was actually at the member of the Congress, and he was wonderful to work with as member of the Congress. We also had another person who is a terrific young lady, Mashika Roberts, MD. She is a City of Columbus Health Commissioner, and she was there to give us a COVID-19 update. And again, she is, that was done virtual. Steve Stivers was there in person. The executive director had a number of things to talk about. The office renovation that we've done, Franklin University, and it's giving these scholarships at Ohio University, giving scholarships to any members of Morph C's staff, etc. So if you're thinking of getting a master's degree or going to college again, that would be the way to do that. We talked about the annual salary and fringe benefits survey. This is every year that this is done, and we've here at Gahanna have always cooperated with that. We talked about Rapid 5 update, which just came out. If you would want to see what it all is about, I have a bag here. You can look at it. The Regional Housing Strategy Speaker Series, and that was another one. And of course, Morph C Night at the Clippers, which at this particular one, Mayor Chris Amoros Grooms, mayor from Dublin, and also the secretary at Morph C, was to throw out the first pitch, but unfortunately it was raining and thundering and lightning, and it had to be canceled. So we hope to do that a little bit later in the day. Within a very few minutes after we had started, the census data was coming out. And so we were quite excited to see what was happening with that, and if that's already it's now out, and I'm sure you've seen it in the news. We had normal things like our committees. The Central Ohio Rural Planning Organization did not speak, but the Regional Policy Roundtable under Ben Collins and the legislative update took place. We had our transportation policy, the Sustainable Advisory Committee, and gave two a Sustainable 2050 recognition to the city of Hilliard. And in our Transportation Policy Committee, we had the Transportation of Infrastructure Development, and this is exciting news about all of the infrastructure money that is going to be coming in. We didn't really have too much to vote on this time. We also had a Community Advisory Committee update, and that was done by LaGretta Holloway. And that was also virtual. And Neil Jurist, of course, gave us a public participation plan update. And that was really about it. It was very exciting to be back and in place. When I first started as chair of MORPC, it was a situation where I was going to be taking it over. I believe it was in April, and in March, we decided we could no longer have our regular meetings. So all of my meetings up until this last one were done on virtual things, and it was so much better to be there and to be able to welcome people back to the thing we like most about MORPC, hard work. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Convention and Visitors Bureau, Mr. Leesburg.
Yeah, thank you. Plans are still underway for the Creekside Blues and Jazz Festival, which is September 17th through the 19th. Volunteers are needed for a variety of duties. You can sign up for a shift on creeksidebluesandjazz.com. I also sent out an email to my colleagues on City Council. Lori Kappas is wondering if City Council would like to man a admissions booth on Friday evening. So if you've got some availability, again, you can reach out at creeksidebluesandjazz.com. Midweek of the Creek is still going on. This Wednesday, Right on Main is the band, and next Wednesday is the last Midweek of the Creek with the Buzzard Kings. There's a new Visit Gahanna website that was recently launched. Lots of good information. If you're hosting an event, you can submit to that website, and they'll post it on the calendar for everybody to know about. So, lots of good stuff happening. And keeping with the promise I made a couple years ago, I'm actually bringing a new group to man at least one gate on Sunday. So, somebody new volunteering. So every year.
Thank you. And School Board, Mr. Schnetzer.
Nothing this evening, Mr. President. Thank you.
If it's to Council's pleasure, we have an additional speaker slip that came in after we started. Would you like to
I do it now, yeah.
have that open for this evening? Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Montgomery, we have your speaker slip this evening. If you would step to the podium, give your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes, if you would.
I apologize, my card battery was dead. I had to wait for the taxi. Thank you. I'm Sharon Montgomery, 572 Bonnington Way in Royal Manor. I want to thank Ms. Bowers, as usual, doing her homework carefully. She knows I have informed myself well on distracted driving and asked for my input on Ordinance 50, which puts ORC 4511991 into our traffic code as 303.100. I also want to thank Mr. Malarski for his time last week so we could share our differing views on this issue. 4511991 appears on the surface to create an additional fine if one of many violations is determined to have been caused by driver distraction. I have more information for you than I can get in my allotted 3 minutes, so I've attached that. Gahanna has chosen to put 4511204, which is the secondary adult texting law, into our code, but not 4511205, which is the primary teen distraction law. We enforce state traffic laws whether or not we put them in our code. Therefore, apparently, putting them in our code is a sort of an endorsement of that law. I would much prefer if my city did not endorse a bad law, which unfortunately this is. This is a looks good on paper law. The sponsors of this law in 2018 carefully scattered so many protective conditions throughout it that it is extremely unlikely to be used enough to have a deterrent effect, and those conditions are on the attachment. And if they each even blatantly misrepresented their own bill and sponsor testimony, overselling it as the extra fine being required, which it is not. I have attached a list of those conditions, and the preventive value of penalties is realized only when they're actually imposed. Looks good on paper is just not enough. To prevent traffic crashes, injuries, and deaths, we must have works in real life. Defending a bad law with something is better than nothing can backfire on us. As long as we keep accepting scraps of solutions, that's all lawmakers will offer us. And when we accept scraps, accept something instead of nothing, the mindset becomes, we've taken care of that, we don't need to deal with it again. Answering Ms. Bowers last week, Chief Spence pointed out that Gahanna's full-time and attention law is easier to prove, so it's used for distraction violations. Proving the violation is an essential part of enforcement. But we don't use generic failure to control for drunk drivers because we've devised ways to prove drunkenness. If we have trouble proving distraction, we need to solve that problem, not skirt it. Some of you were here when we discussed the full-time and attention option a decade ago. As I said at that time, the downside of using these more generic laws is that, one, they don't educate the public on the unique dangers of the specific behaviors of driving under the influence of electronics. And two, they don't provide the data we need to know whether or not the law is working or whether we need to revise it. I also want to thank Chief Spence for collecting and publicizing data on distraction violations over and above what is generally required. And he's been extremely helpful in answering my many questions. And I thank you again for squeezing me in my being late. Thank you.
Thank you. And official reports, Madam Mayor.
Yes, thank you very much. I, again, would just like to congratulate and recognize the Kiwanis Club of Gahanna for their 60-plus years now of tremendous service and dedication to our community. I cannot help but think how blessed we are in this community to have so many organizations that give so unselfishly of their time and their talents and energy to support organizations, individuals, projects. It really does take a village to move things forward, and they are certainly a vital part of that. Last year, after the onset of COVID and the onset of virtual meetings, I started to prepare written mayor's reports, which largely, at least initially, were focused on updating council on our internal operations and how we were responding to COVID. Over the past 15 to 18 months, those have evolved into very detailed reports that I have been providing every 2 weeks, right before every regular council meeting. Given the detail in those reports, I know it's hard to read 17-plus page documents every 2 weeks. I'm going to cut that back and just do it once a month at the first regular council meeting of the month. That being said, if you have any questions at any time, or if you would prefer that I continue them every 2 weeks, I'd be happy to do that. But I thought maybe for your reading retention, it might be better to just provide those once a month. And then at the secondary meetings, such as tonight, I'll just give you some verbal updates, and a couple of those are as follows. Events are returning. Councilman Leesburg just referenced Midweek at the Creek that continues to go on. Just in the last, since our last regular council meeting, we had the Capitol Corvette Car Show that returned to town. It was wonderful to see thousands of people down on Mill Street. They had over 300 cars for that event. It was just a fantastic day until the rains came in the evening. But I would like to thank Mark Thomas and the planning committee from the Capitol Corvette Club, and as well as their members, for presenting such a wonderful event. I understand they raised over $20,000 for Nationwide Children's Hospital that day. The next event coming up is supporting Gahanna Together Day, which is Saturday, September 4th. That day was started last year as an opportunity to bring our community together, support one another through service projects. And we, again, have many great service projects, volunteer opportunities available. If you go to volunteergahanna.org, all of those opportunities are listed on there, and we look forward to seeing everybody down there and having fun and supporting Gahanna Together. A few staffing updates. You may recall last spring that we had the opportunity to partner with MORPC and to secure an intern from the Eastern Fellowship Program. For the last 14 weeks, we've had a young gentleman, a master's degree student who has been with us in our Parks and Recreation Department, Prince. And I'm not going to try to say his last name because he knows I will not be able to say it appropriately. But he is from Ghana, and he was supposed to go home to visit his family. He has not seen them since 2019, and instead he did not take that trip home and instead stayed in Gahanna to work with us for the past 14 weeks. And actually, his last day was Friday, and he said he's not sure he can remember how to say his country's name anymore after saying Gahanna now for the last 14 weeks. But during the course of his time here, he worked on, his project was focused on our parks, our trail connectivity. and he did a presentation for us internally, and last week presented to MORPC. And we are very proud to say that he and his presentation will receive special recognition at MORPC State of the Region for the work that he did. He really went above and beyond what he was required to do. He was just a pleasure to have here. He did an incredible job for us. And really, the deliverables that he provided will be instrumental as the Parks and Recreation Department now works on updating its long-term strategic plan. So some great work by Prince, and hopefully we can have him come back here at some time and present what he found to all of you as well. On a secondary, with regard to staffing, some bittersweet news. Sharon Patterson, our longtime administrative assistant extraordinaire, has shared with us her plans to retire in September. Sharon has been with the city for at least 15 years, and we are going to miss her. It's going to be hard to fill her shoes. At the same time, we're very excited for her and her husband. I know they love to travel, and they have a lot of plans in place. We are, I believe as Director Burry shared a couple of weeks ago, heading into our budgeting process that is now underway. And we are meeting with all of the individual departments to discuss staffing needs as well as budget needs for 2022. And certainly a discussion of how we will even begin to try to replace Ms. Patterson is going to be a lengthy discussion for the Department of Planning as we move forward. She really, truly has been a tremendous asset, and I know CIC will miss her too for all of her historical knowledge. And then finally, just a few project updates. The Crescent at Central Park is continuing to move forward at a rapid pace. The 4th medical building is now confirmed and signed on. And jobs are being added every time a building is added. We are trying to catch up with them for groundbreaking ceremonies. We haven't been able to do that. They're moving that rapidly. But stay tuned, and as soon as we have an opportunity to schedule, whether it's a beam signing or a groundbreaking ceremony, we will do that because there's a lot happening over off of Tech Center Drive. I'd like to thank Ms. Hoffman for her comments on the street program. The rebuilding and repaving phase of the program is nearly complete, and we are now going to be moving into the punch list and final restoration stages of that program. Project is on time and on track, and this, as you've heard many times, and as we are all well aware, has been the largest street program in our city's history. And I actually very much appreciate Ms. Hoffman's comments about staff. I would very much like to thank Director Crawford and his team for the work that they did on this huge project, and specifically to recognize Jason Collins, Vinnie Camacho, Rob Rose, John Moorhead, Caitlin Ridge, and Jill Webb. This program has been occupying a significant number of hours of their time, and it's been stressful. I know they're looking forward to seeing the end of the light of the tunnel, but it has been wonderful for our city, and I also appreciate Councilman Schnetzer's comments last week that he was riding his bike through town and just saw all the streets that had been redone. And I'd like to thank, with that note, Council for your support of that program and for being able to accomplish this and catch up on a lot of the deferred maintenance that needs to be done in this city. Finally, speaking of deferred maintenance, we've had some significant rainstorms in the past week or so with large amounts of rain coming down in short periods of time. And all of that has served to remind us that our sewer system remains at the forefront of our capital needs. We continue to move forward with the surveying and evaluation of the system on the west side of town, to help diagnose what concerns there may be and where those may be. We are in the process of scheduling a virtual town hall hopefully in the next coming weeks, few weeks, that will be held with all of the households that are part of that survey area to update them on the program and where we are and what next steps would be. I'm hoping that the rain that we have had over the last 7 to 10 days will provide even more information so that a consultant will be able to update us even further. So as soon as we get that scheduled, I will be sure to let all of you know as well to make sure that you have an opportunity to participate in that and provide you information as soon as I have more complete information from Director Crawford and the consultant. And unless there's any questions, that's all I have for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And City Attorney, Mr. Malarski, if you have any comments.
Thank you. I just also would like to add my congratulations to the Gahanna Kiwanis for their 60th. I'm a member of Eastern Kiwanis. We formed Gahanna Kiwanis, as well as a bunch of others around the eastern side of Columbus. That has cannibalized our own club. We are winding down because we're down to very few members, and I will be joining the Gahanna Kiwanis next year. but 60 years is a long time. That's quite an achievement, and I've helped them through many of the things they've done, and they do an excellent job. So I'd like to add my congratulations.
Thank you. And moving to council comments, Mrs. Angelou.
Thank you. I sent you today the funding availability to enhance mobility of older adults and individuals with disabilities. There's a deadline for requests for the program, and I think that it might be something that our seniors would like to potentially, and our Parks and Recreation Department might want to look into. This is a round of funding is unique because CARES Act funding allowed for 100% federal funding, meaning no local funding is required for this round. So this may be a good possibility for our seniors. Also, I failed to remark about a wonderful person at Morpsey that is leaving, Aaron Schill. He was through all of our data systems. He has been spectacular, and I think it's the last 5 years. He is getting married and moving to Portland. I told him that I could probably find him another girl that would just be right here and he could stay, but he said no, he was going to be going with his fiancée. So as much as I tried to keep him here, I was unsuccessful, although I still say I can call him if you know somebody that's looking for a wonderful person to live with. Anyway, we will miss him. He has been unbelievably talented. So fortunately, he's going to be doing a little bit of work for us on his way to Portland. You're right, we had a lot of rain the past few days, and but it's nice to get that coolness back then from after the rain. I've been actually going to the Gahanna golf course every once in a while now, and I want to say that it's been in really, really good condition, and it's a really nice place to meet people and talk to people. I can't tell you how many people I've said, you're invited to come and live here. You know, I don't know where you're living now, but we'll want you to come to live here and look at this nice golf course you can play golf on. So I want to thank the Parks and Recreation for doing such a good job with the golf course. So other than that, I have nothing else.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. On the topic of Morpsey, I just wanted to thank Morpsey. I recognize that they were one of the sponsors of the African American Male Wellness Walk that took place this past weekend. This is a signature event of the African American Male Wellness Agency, and it was the cumulative efforts, or kind of the pinnacle event of African American Male Wellness Week. So I know a lot of our Gahanna residents and some of our neighboring communities took part in that event, and I just wanted to highlight that event as an important one in the region.
John Gore is started. I did a whole bunch of that, and he lives here.
Yes, yes. And to note, that organization has it started in Columbus, and it's launched walks all across the country now as well. Thank you to Sharon Montgomery and to Tricia Kovacs for speaking on some codification that is on the agenda for first reading tonight. Ms. Montgomery, for those, I think everyone on council knows, but Ms. Montgomery has taken an incident of personal tragedy and turned it into a cause. And she champions safe driving laws at our state level and here locally. I think, you know, most of us recognize that Ohio Revised Code 4511.19, which is our drunk driving code, our impaired driving code, was the cumulative efforts of wives and mothers directly impacted by drunk driving. And today, we as a community generally accept that specifically prohibiting impaired driving is good for our community. It's true that driving under the influence of devices is a critical problem in our area. Driving deaths are up from crashes, and the metro region has been marked as one of the areas with the worst driving in the country, largely due to distracted driving. I hope that we as a society, as a community, and as a legislative body start to think about ways that we can creatively work to actively curb the use of devices while driving, especially handheld devices. I know that would not be enough for Ms. Montgomery, but but we have to start somewhere. I did want to also mention, I misspoke during the last Committee of the Whole discussion on this particular topic. The current failure to control code section does provide that a citation can be issued for failure to provide full time and attention. And I do think it speaks directly to distracted driving, not just device distracted, but applying makeup or changing the radio or if there's other issues that are going on. The code provides that a first offense for violating a full-time and attention paragraph is an M4 on a first offense, which is a criminal citation, and it carries a maximum penalty of time in jail. So, I misspoke in saying that it was an M1, and I just wanted to make sure that was corrected. And I do recognize that in order to take a problem seriously, we do need to study it, and we do need to take metrics on it. So I appreciate the call out to Chief Spence for doing that within the department. On a similar note, I wanted to highlight an issue that was brought to my attention, just in hopes that we can maybe start to get the word out as a city government. Alarm user permits are required under Gahanna's Chapter 715 of our code. So for people who've installed their own security systems or permit section, their security systems, whether it's a Ring or something that connects to our police department, people do need to be aware that there are some requirements under the code. There's a one-time user fee of $35, and if you have any questions, please contact our non-emergency police line. On that point, I want to thank specifically our law enforcement, our police department. There have been a couple incidents recently that have resulted in calls to the non-emergency line that the officers have actually been out patrolling already, and so responding incredibly quickly, just from neighborhood disagreements to fallen tree limbs after some of the heavy rains that we've had. So thank you to the members of the police department who've been responsive to that. And thank you to those also who spoke tonight, Ms. Hoffman and Ms. Kovacs.
Thank you. Mr. Leesburg.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to give a shout out to the Parks Department. I think I was the only council person that did the Muddy Mile yesterday. So I didn't see anybody else in the river, but so we made a deal with the wrestling team. We could either run around the room or we could go out and have some fun. So most of them chose that. So we had a good turnout from the wrestling team. There was one other I wanted to. Oh, if anybody needs me, I'll be across the street at Mod Pizza for the Center Ice Foundation pizza fundraiser. So that's where I'm going for dinner. So join me over there. Mention Center Ice. Other than that, I'm good.
Thank you. Mr. Renner.
Thank you. It's wonderful to give a shout out to our community organizations, as the mayor and others have done with Mark Thomas and the Corvette Show. Wonderful show, good charity, good cause. I also wanted to give a great shout out to our police department. We had National Night Out on one of the Tuesdays 2 weeks ago. And thank you for the administration and the staff support at Sunpoint Park. That was a very hot evening, and our guys in blue were there in all their regalia, including our SWAT team. But I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 attendees to the park. To National Night Out so it was a very good event. And so thank you, Chief, and for all that, and thank you, Mayor, for the support on that. I'm glad, Mayor, that you brought up the rains. Everybody, especially in the Rural Manor area, was busy calling me, especially when all those graphics were put on Facebook with all the flooded streets. But I was able to take the opportunity and turn around to people and help them understand that within 20 minutes we had over 4,000 gallons of rain per average rooftop. And so I helped use that to illustrate that when you have an area where a lot of homes are pushed together, and that's just a lot of rain that our systems were inundated. And there were many examples across the county that were also flooded out. But it is still prevalent on everybody's minds in the area, and so it should be. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schnetzer.
It's always a casualty of going last as I start crossing the items off the list as those that speak before me have touched on them. But no, I do want to, I guess, kind of emphasize, along with the mayor and Mr. Renner, the car show event. Special thanks to Mark Thomas, former public safety director, and also to PD and the chief for National Night Out. Stephen, I saw you at both, and Ms. Bowers, I saw you at National Night Out, and Mayor, I believe I saw you at both as well. So it was good to see some of my colleagues there. On a lighter note, or a moment of levity, I was down at Creekside, not this past weekend, but the weekend before that, and after lunch, grabbing some coffee with the family, ran into a gentleman that was here visiting from out of town on a 60-day business trip from New Orleans, Louisiana, of all places. Was staying over at a hotel by the airport. That's a conversation for a different day, but nonetheless, he was very familiar with the Creekside area, knew many of the restaurants. We pointed him in the direction of some that were off the beaten path that he was going to add to his list, but, and Madam Mayor, I know I shared this with you offline, I thought you could use the good news, is he just spoke so highly of this community. All of the restaurants, all of the things here, said it was, it was tidy, it was clean, it was very welcoming. He was here with his four-legged friend, using the trails, and was a frequent visitor to the downtown Creekside area. And I don't know, it just struck me in talking with him for, what ended up probably being 30, maybe 40 minutes. Sometimes we kind of, I guess, take for granted what we have in our own backyard, and it takes an outside visitor's perspective to really cause us to step back and realize we've got it pretty good here. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that along to everybody.
Thank you. Mrs. McGregor.
We have, if most of you may know, I live along McKenna Creek, and McKenna Creek breached the road, and so I sent a note. As the water recedes, it leaves a layer of silt all over the road, and I sent a note to Grant, and I appreciate it. He had a street sweeper come out and run up and down a few times to get most of the silt off of the road. But many times when people come down, they're just astounded at how much water is in that creek, and they're always worried about our basements. And I said, no basements. And they said, oh, the road is terrible. I said, water in the road is good, water in the basement is bad. So as long as we can keep the water in the road, we're good. So hopefully we don't have such heavy rains in the next few weeks to let everything dry out a little. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. My comments this evening are not focused to legislation, but really focused to the human experience. Last Monday morning, I received a phone call, or I received a message that a friend of mine had passed away unexpectedly. This gentleman was one of 8 people that lived together in a house in Ohio State for 2 years. We lived together, we went to each other's weddings, we've seen each other's families get raised. We get together almost every year en masse. This gentleman lived in Kansas City, and upon notice, every single member of that household went to Kansas City on less than a week's notice. To say that we were a family is an understatement. What I will say is that one of the comments, or the comment that was pure across all of us, was that while we try to get together every year, sometimes we cannot, for whatever the reasons are that we have, and not a single one of us recalled a good reason for not getting together the last time and not seeing this gentleman before he passed away unexpectedly. Just want to remind everyone that we have one opportunity in this life. Stay close to those people that are close to you, and don't let a day go by without letting them know how much you care about them. That's my comments for this evening. With that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.